Yeah.
Welcome to the Stack of Stats podcast. I am your host, Pam Maldonado, joined by my college football partner in crime, Harry Gagnon of the Against All Odds podcast with Cousin Sal. And we are here to bring you our 7 against the spread picks in college football. Harry, welcome back, my man. How was your week 3 of college football for you?
It was okay, Pam. We did okay. We're turning the corner here. I did some nice work over the weekend. Had some winners, so hopefully we can just build here and turn this into, like I said, we need to bang out a 6-1, 7-0, 5-2 week, and we'll take that. Let's get rolling.
It's coming, and I think it could happen this week. Just to remind you what it is that we are doing, we are in a 7 against the spread contest between college football and the NFL. But since he loves college and I love college, we're kind of sticking with college. We went 4-3 last week. We're 7-7 through the first 2 weeks of the contest that we are in. What we are doing each week is Harry is sharing with me his absolute this can't fail best 3 best picks. Sometimes they fail as we are 7-7. And I shared with him my absolute most confident against the spread 3 picks. And together we will decide our 7th. Last week, we had some big ass favorites. Some of those big ass favorites did not hit. And now I am so happy that when you sent me the 3 picks that you liked, that you had a couple of dogs. I'm happy because you haven't had any dogs in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, look, I mean, I got some dogs this week. Iowa State was a big favorite. One of my teams from that I'm big on this year came through against UNLV. But boy, that Alabama game, I know you were watching, Pam, and checking it out. So many times it seemed like when they took the lead by 12 or 14 or 15, they just give it right back to the Gators. It was kind of frustrating to watch that game because easily could have covered, and they barely won the game.
Oh my God. Yeah. Marshall was a huge heartbreak. I didn't watch that game. I was following on the Yahoo Sports app. And I was like, oh man, we're good. We're up by like 2 scores. And then all of a sudden they lost outright. But how do they say, what is it that people say? If you're not going to cover, then at least lose the game. And that's exactly what they did. So, hey, you can't really blame Marshall for chucking it up.
That's funny because I was doing a bunch of stuff on Saturday. And I remember obviously that we had Marshall, and I checked and I saw those. I don't know what time. It was in the 4th, and they were up like 14, 15. I'm like, Pam, nice job, and then whatever.
Oh my God. Every time you're like super confident about something. Oh, feeling good at the half, feeling good at the third.
Yeah.
This is college. 4th quarters happened all the time. They were up 17 points with 8 minutes left in the game. Heartbreak. That is college for you. This week, we're going to do better. I feel it. We're going to go 5-2. We're going to go 6-1. I think we can go 7-0. I think we have the potential. So we'll talk about some of the games that you like, starting first with Notre Dame plus 6.5 versus Wisconsin. It is on a neutral field in Chicago. I definitely don't dislike this play. I talked about it on Yahoo. I reviewed this game. This was more of a lean for me, Notre Dame. I'm on the same side with you, but I do like that we are getting 6.5 because the line that I reviewed was 5.5. So you give me a whole extra point. Hey, I'm going to love it even more. What is it about this game that you like it?
Look, I mean, Notre Dame is 3-0. Have they been impressive? No, they definitely haven't been impressive, but they still are 3-0. Their over-under for the season was like at 9.5, so they're still on that pace. I would like to have seen this game be at Camp Randall in Wisconsin, in Madison, considering quarterback Jack Cohn for the Irish played for Wisconsin. It would be interesting to see how Notre Dame would get up for this game, but I think they're going to get up for this game for Cohn. Anyways, in Soldier Field, he's got 8 touchdowns, 2 picks this season. But I really like the running back, Kyren Williams. 4.6 yards a carry he's averaging. And not only is he the leading rusher and had 1,100 yards last year and 13 touchdowns, but he's their second leading receiver as well. I just think this is a situation where Wisconsin, I just don't understand this line, Pam, really. I mean, it's not in Wisconsin. It's on a neutral field. Wisconsin's offense was nothing against Penn State and losing at home. Their quarterback situation this year, don't have a lot of offense there. And again, Notre Dame, undefeated, was ranked highly before the season started. Maybe their wins haven't been impressive, like I said, but they are undefeated. Getting 6.5 here on a neutral field seems too good.
And the line has ticked up. The line actually opened at 4.5, 5.5, and it's now 6.5.
I mentioned this. We talked about this on Against All Odds, my podcast with Cousin Sal, where like it's almost like so far off line that it's kind of fishy. but I'm not even falling for that because it's so far off, in my opinion. I think Notre Dame, I don't understand why this game isn't like a 2-point spread. I don't understand why it's this high. I'm taking these points.
I agree. I think this game is going to come down to turnovers. I have two screens. That's why I'm looking kind of left. I have this game is going to come down to turnovers, I believe, because Notre Dame, they haven't faced a run team. Wisconsin, they haven't faced a strong passing team. So Wisconsin, they are bottom 20. They're bottom 20 in turnovers. They have a -3 turnover ratio. They have two quarterbacks in Mertz and Wolf. As you mentioned, they stink. Yep. There's 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And Notre Dame is a top 40 team in takeaways. Their defense has forced 5 interceptions, 1 fumble on 13 sacks. I definitely think this is going to be a defensive game. I like the under in this game. You give me the under with the team that has a better defense versus a team who is kind of giving it away at the moment. Yeah, I definitely really do like Notre Dame here in this spot. Am I going to bet it personally? I haven't decided yet, but I love it for our contest card. Yeah. Another game that you like is, okay. Harry. Yes. It is. I like to take dogs. I like that you did dogs this week, but I take dogs if I think they can win the game. Do you think that Rutgers +20 against Michigan is going to win the game?
Win the game? No, but I think this is a ton of points. And granted, give it up for Harbaugh a little bit. I guess his squad is not only 3-0 as Michigan, but they are 3-0 against the spread. Now, Rutgers has looked pretty good offensively this season. They have 10 through 3 games, 10 rushing touchdowns. And Michigan, I think this is a situation since they've covered all 3, and they're at Wisconsin next week. Conference play starts 3-0 against the spread. First conference game here against Rutgers. Like I said, going on the road finally after 4 weeks to start the season. I think this is a game where they don't need this to be a blowout. They want to make sure everyone's healthy as they head into Madison. Rutgers has been putting up points. So I'm thinking this is a situation where it's too many in this spot. I don't know if Michigan goes 4-0 against the spread. I think they can slip here, and Rutgers gets some money.
Yes, you mentioned it. Last year's score was 42-48. That was with a different quarterback for Rutgers. He's no longer there. The year before, Michigan blew them out 52-0 in 2018, 42-7 in 2017, 35-14 in 2016, 78-0.
But are you sold on? Are you sold on the Wolverines? I'm still not. I mean,
I am sold on their run game. I love their run game. I think they have a great running back core. Strong. They're definitely top 5, but it is also face off the competition. But now if you look at who Rutgers has played, they haven't faced a whole bunch of nobodies. And that's my worry, is that they faced, who did they face? They beat Syracuse.
They played my Syracuse. They beat my Syracuse.
Exactly. Which is remember, Syracuse had 1 win last season, and so did Temple. They played 2 teams who had 1 single win in the 2020 season, and then an FCS team. So I think their awesomeness of what you see, they're 3-0. I don't think it really holds a lot of weight. And that's my worry against Michigan, who has a fantastic running
Michigan looked too good last week, though. Too good last week. So everyone will jump on them this week, and they don't cover against Rutgers as they go to Wisconsin the week after.
Well, I am not betting this, that's for sure, but it is on our contest card. I'm going to put my trust in Harry. He doesn't like too many underdogs, so for him to like this one, hey, you got to roll with it. Rutgers +20 at Michigan. The other game that you do like, it is a favorite, and I definitely don't dislike this one either. It is Michigan State -5 at home versus Nebraska. Hey, I like me some Michigan State. If you give me a team that has some defense and a home team, I'm going to look at it and consider it. Tell me why you like Michigan, though.
Look, Michigan State's been amazing offensively. I mean, they're putting up big points. They went into a trap game last week out of conference, had to go down south to South Beach to play Miami, Florida, and they did what they needed to do. They were ahead early, put it on cruise control, took care of De'Ara King, didn't let him get too much in terms of yards and scoring. And Michigan State won that game going away, and they've been awesome this year so far to start the season. Kenneth Walker leads the nation in rushing. He's been fantastic. Yeah. He's got 6 total touchdowns. And on the flip side, Nebraska, I will give them credit. Nebraska did play tough in Norman last week.
They did.
held Spencer Rattler to only like 214 yards passing, which is quite the accomplishment.
One
but
passing
still,
touchdown.
Yeah. But it's a lot to ask for Nebraska to go back to back. Norman and then East Lansing, they covered last week. But this Michigan State offense, I'm rolling with them until I see something otherwise. They've been fantastic.
And I do agree with this one because Nebraska last week was held to just 95 rushing yards on 35 attempts for 2.5 yards per carry. And yes, they did hold Spencer Rattler to just one passing touchdown. But I think this week is going to be a similar matchup in that the Spartans, they're 21st in opponent rushing yards. They held Miami, as you mentioned, to 2.2 yards per carry. And they are ranked in 11th. They are ranked 11th in rushing yards themselves on offense. So I think that the Spartans are going to control the clock here. I think they're going to limit the yardage, which is going to keep, I like this under in this game. So if you give me the under, you give me the home team and you give me the better defense with, yes, the best running back in the country right now. I definitely don't dislike this. So I will approve 2 of your 3 picks. And I'm worried as hell for Rutgers. I am worried for Rutgers. That is my one scare. I had them overrated for the Big Ten for being the 3-0 team. They look good, but they have faced nobody. So Notre Dame plus 6.5 versus Wisconsin, Rutgers plus 20 at Michigan, and then Michigan State -5 at home versus Nebraska. Those are the 3 games that you like. The 3 games that I like is Liberty -6 at Syracuse. We're going to start first with that one. I really like Malik Willis here. He is a stud quarterback. He is doing fantastic things. As I mentioned, Syracuse had only 1 win last season, and they're kind of about to do the same thing. They're not doing very well this season. You give me the better quarterback, that's going to be Malik Willis. You give me the better running game, that's going to be Malik Willis and this rushing offense. And they have a few running backs. It's not just him. It's not a one-man show. They do have a couple of running backs here that have over 100 rushing yards on in each of their games. I like Liberty to not just win by 6, but I think they're going to win here pretty comfortably by at least double digits. Do you have anything to say about Liberty?
Yeah, like I said, going against my Syracuse, but still, I don't mind that pick at all, considering look, Liberty averaging 200 yards a game rushing. They've got 200 yards rushing a game. You mentioned Willis. He's averaging 6.6 yards a carry. He's got 4 touchdowns on the ground. And Syracuse, historically, as of late, has been terrible against the run. Terrible against the run. That's what Liberty likes to do. So laying the points here. Look, Syracuse put up a big number last week against SUNY Albany. Enough of the cupcakes. Liberty was a great team last year. They're still pretty good here. I kind of like this laying. Only have to win by a touchdown, you get the cover.
And that was one of the things that I was mentioning. If you're going to look at a team like I was just talking about right now about Rutgers, look at the competition that you have faced. In Syracuse, they're supposed to be the 4th best team in rushing. They're supposed to be 4th in overall defense right now. That's a bunch of garbage. They are absolutely not. They have faced Ohio and Rutgers and Albany, an FCS team. Ohio is not a run team, first off. Rutgers, not a run team. So yeah, their defense is looking pretty good here, but it's false information. It is skewed information is what I am saying. You haven't faced a bunch of nobodies. So Syracuse, they're going to get a true test this week, and it's going to be in Malik Willis and Liberty. The other game that I like is Florida Atlantic at Air Force -4.5. If you have an offense that has one strength, well, then you better be damn good at that strength. And that is exactly what Air Force does. Military team, what do? They like to run the ball. They are 4th in rushing yards right now. And Florida Atlantic is 121st in defending the run. I like Air Force here to kind of just keep things on the ground. They're going to control the pace. They like things fast. They did it last year. They beat up on the teams that they were supposed to. And this is a very good spot for them to beat up on a team that they're supposed to now. The one worry is that Florida Atlantic, they are doing pretty good on that pass. And Air Force has been vulnerable against the pass this season. They're 75th in opponent passing yards allowed, and Florida Atlantic is top 23. One thing is going to help them, though. I always look at strength versus weakness, how an offensive line does against a pass rush. And Air Force is top 20 in sacks right now. They're producing a few sacks per game, and Florida Atlantic is 124th in quarterback protection. I like Air Force to run the ball and keep the ball out of Florida Atlantic's hands for the passing game. They're going to keep things good here on the ground. What do you think?
I like that stat you just gave, the defensive side of things, because I don't love the pick here because you mentioned, look at Florida Atlantic, last 2 games, outscored their opponents. I know they've been playing not the greatest teams, but still outscored them 83-20. And They only did lose to the Florida Gators, who, like we mentioned, almost beat Alabama. They only lost to them by 21 in their opener. So I don't love this pick, but I like that stat where maybe Air Force's defense, maybe can get some sacks, get some pressures on here, get a couple turnovers, and maybe get a lead early and grind it out with a run game.
Well, that's already a good example also, because they did play Florida, who we saw is a heavy run team, and they lost 35-14. Now, is Air Force similar to that of Florida? Maybe not quite, but it could be a similar showing to what we've seen. And I'm talking about quarterback protection. The quarterback, Perry, for Florida Atlantic, he's been sacked. He has more sacks than he has touchdowns. 11 That's sacks good. To just 7 touchdowns. I like Air Force here to do some damage with that quarterback and to control the clock with that run game. Air Force -4.5. The third game that I like is San Jose at Western Michigan -3. We just saw Western Michigan have one hell of a game. That is my worry, is that teams they came in to Pitt as 14.5-point underdogs and came out with the outright win 44-41. My worry is that taking teams who have come off a big upset win, how do they answer that in the week after? But this is a home game. And I think another way you can see it is this is going to build on some momentum. One other worry is that Western Michigan is going to be without their coach because he has tested positive, head coach Tim Lester. But I think the team, if you look at the other coaches that are on deck, they've been with the team for a while. None of them are necessarily new. So this would be like, we have to pick 7. So if I needed to pick 3, then I'm gonna go with Western Michigan here. And I don't pick favorites, but I do like Western Michigan I like them at -2.5. I like them at -3. Do you have anything that could help with this pick?
Come on, you're the MAC expert. So, okay, let's go Western Mich. I like it. Plus, quarterback Caleb Ellaby, he's been fantastic. 27 touchdowns in his career, just 5 picks. He's got 7 rushing touchdowns. That's a heck of a percentage. And San Jose State was great last year, don't get me wrong, and they might have a pretty good team still this year. But last 2 games combined, only 24 points for the Spartans here. So Western Michigan seems like they have much more potent offense.
Exactly. And the reason for that potent offense is because if you look at San Jose State, they're a one-dimensional pass-only team. They don't run the ball. They're 123rd in rushing yards. Western Michigan, they have a little bit more of a dynamic offense. They both pass and run, though they are more pass heavy. They're 35th in passing yards and 70th in rushing yards. But it's having a bit more of that balance that is helping them get downfield. And clearly against Pitt, they're able to make some plays. I do think that Western Michigan has the better quarterback. And like you said, I trust my MAC guys. I'm not going to underestimate their abilities here. Western Michigan is a fantastic team. They're 2-1 right now. They have played a tougher slate of opponents, losing to Michigan and then to Pittsburgh. Well, they lost to Michigan because Michigan does nothing but run. San Jose State, I just said, they don't run. So they're going to be able to defend the ball a little bit better on that side. I like them at -3. So those are the 3 picks for each. I have Liberty -6 at Syracuse, Florida Atlantic at Air Force -4.5, San Jose State at Western Michigan -3. Now we need a 7th pick. This is where things get a little bit dicey. Things get a little bit tricky because I don't think I agree with yours. I don't think you agree with mine. It's a little bit hard to pick 7 games in college football, but here's some of the options. I sent them to you earlier. A few of the games that we're looking at is Iowa State at Baylor +7 as home underdogs, Louisville at Florida State +2 as home underdogs, or you like Kentucky -5 at South Carolina. And the 4th game is West Virginia at Oklahoma -17. I can find something wrong with every single one of these games. I think Florida State is hella scary, first off, because they stink. And I get that. I like Florida State. Let me tell you why I like each game first. I like
Florida State because I'm interested because I really I don't see anything that would lean towards Florida State here, but I'll tell you why after you give me your reason why, so maybe you can sway me.
Well, a huge reason why I like Florida State is because the reason why they've been struggling in the first couple of weeks is because of quarterback protection. They stink with that offensive line. Louisville, they don't have a good pass rush. This is the first team in the 3 games that they have played. In the 4 games they have played, the Florida State is not going to face a top half pass rush. Louisville is not that team. So I like Florida State here to have less interceptions, which has been their problem, but they're having those interceptions because of the because of the pass rush that they've been facing. So now you're going to have a clean pocket. You're going to see the ability with Mackenzie McDonald. He is a great quarterback coming from UCF. Maybe his injuries have kind of really hurt him. His injuries in the past have hurt him for having these interceptions, but now he's going to have a team. Now he's facing a defense that doesn't have a pressure. So it's not going to give that quarterback pressure. So now maybe he could have a better game. I like his ability. This is going to be the first game that Florida State is going to be playing at home where they're not going to be facing that quarterback pressure. Maybe we see this offense really come alive this time around.
Well, this is also the first game at home since losing to Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State. And I'm going to just throw in that Louisville isn't very good, but they weren't very good last year either, Pam. And they still beat Florida State last year by 32.
Okay. I can't say that I know much about FCS teams.
Yeah, I'm just saying I don't this Florida State team until I mean they battled and gave Notre Dame one heck of a game opening week of the season, but since then it's just they deflated and I just can't take the scene.
Well, the Louisville defense has only had one interception. They've only intercepted one total pass through a few games and just 5 total sacks. So I think this is really just like the key matchup is that this Florida State offensive line is going to finally see some open yards. They're going to be able to see downfield now because there is no quarterback pressure. If that's too scary, I get it. It's too much of a risk. We can leave it off. Another team that I liked was Baylor at home against Iowa State. The Cyclones, they were supposed to be the team headed into the Big 12 coming into the season, but they're not really doing as well as people probably expected them to. They had a shaky, narrow 16-10 win over an FCS school. They lost 27-17 to Iowa, and they haven't really had, you beat up on UNLV. You're supposed to beat up on UNLV. You had them last week to cover his minus 30-point favorites. But
you hated that pick.
I hated that pick, and it was like the easiest one to hit. But what I do like is that Baylor, they have a really good run game. They have 5 players who have 100 yards or more rushing and receiving. Iowa State, they really only have 3 key players, and one of those is Breece Hall. If you can control Breece Hall, then you really are limiting the game. And I mean, Brock Purdy, he looks okay, but you put him up against pass rush, and he's going to kind of like wreck. Baylor has intercepted more than a few passes. And now if you limit the run game in Breece Hall, then maybe there's an opportunity there for an interception or 2. I
hear you, but I'm one of those guys that have been on Iowa State from the beginning of the season. I'm still okay with them. They maybe last week is what they needed in that UNLV game. It's just to get ground the run game, get Brock Purdy a couple touchdowns, and it kick starts that offense. They still, I know the loss to Iowa was bad, but again, they only gave up about 170 total yards in that game, and they're not out of the Big 12 championship yet because that was an out-of-conference game. So, and Oklahoma doesn't look fantastic either. So, overall, only beat Tulane by like 5 points too. So the Big 12 is up for grabs. So I don't love Baylor here. I'm still a backer of Iowa State. I'm still a backer of Matt Campbell, their head coach. And I like Iowa State here to maybe get things really rolling.
Okay, then. Well, then let's move over to the 7th option. We're still trying to find our 7th pick here. You like Kentucky -5 at South Carolina. I don't dislike this game. Kentucky, good pass rush. South Carolina, weak offensive line. They do have Kentucky at least has a dual threat offense. They're able to both pass. They're 22nd in passing yards. They're 15th in rushing yards. And South Carolina, they don't really have much. They're 101st in total offense. They're 58th in total defense. But they're -5 away. Tell me why you think they can cover the spread on the road.
Kentucky is 3-0, but they definitely need to play better than they did last week. Only beating Tennessee Chattanooga by 5. This is the first road game of the season. I hope they aren't looking ahead as they get Florida at home next week. But you mentioned their balanced offense. It's very impressive so far through 3 games. Got 600 yards rushing, and they've got 850 yards passing, 14 total touchdowns. Very impressive for Kentucky. They've been able to continue to put up nice scores, nice drives, and they are 3-0 here. I just don't know if it's a letdown here, but I still like Kentucky minus the points because it's too much offense.
South Carolina, they haven't played anybody.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm looking at South Carolina's.
Well, South Carolina, also remember they got rolled by Georgia last week too. It could have been worse, but I think Georgia called it quits after a little bit.
Yeah.
Their quarterbacks combined, though, South Carolina, you mentioned no offense, really. 56% completion percentage, been sacked 7 times, running the ball. They've had 120 total carries, South Carolina.
And this is how
one rushing touchdown.
Yeah, this is exactly how unconvincing they are on offense too. They have right now 4 quarterbacks on rotation because they can't seem to find one that they like. And combined between 4 quarterbacks, they're averaging 56% completion, 7.8 yards per pass, which sounds good, but that's because one quarterback who has 1 attempt had a 19-yard pass. And so that's definitely helped the cause. That's definitely helped the cause a little bit.
Maybe beating Tennessee Chattanooga last week by 5, maybe their coaching staff, maybe lit a fire under their asses a little bit and said, look, that's not acceptable. We won the game, but we got to play better than that. We've got big games in front of us. We can't let the South Carolina game slip from us. Let's go out there immediately, smash them in the mouth, and take control from the very beginning, because they have the offense to do that, and South Carolina definitely doesn't.
Well, then we may end up putting Kentucky, but the last option that you have is Oklahoma -17 at home against West Virginia. This is the second time you've had Oklahoma. Are we sure that they can cover spreads? Because their defense is just gosh darn awful. Last week against Nebraska, who's not very good, who doesn't have that many offensive weapons and not really even a good defense, held Spencer Rattler in check. Well, I think West Virginia is a step up against Nebraska compared to Nebraska. So why do you think that now Oklahoma can cover 17?
Well, first, I will say that last week in the contest, your West Virginia pick was very good. That was a winner. It was winner easy. You mentioned last week that they are a different team at home, and they were fantastic last week. They're a different team on the road, and they don't show up all the time. And I'm thinking because Oklahoma didn't look so good offensively, so good in Norman, that they get things rolling here against a West Virginia team that is coming off an emotional, nice win.
Yes.
And they really show more offense here. Rattler has a better game, and I think this is a blowout from the beginning.
I don't disagree with that. If you look at West Virginia traveling to Norman, Oklahoma, they have lost by double digits every single trip. 2019, last time they played though was in 2019. They lost 14-52. In 2017, they lost 31-59. In 2015, they lost 24-44. You're seeing the pattern here, double-digit losses. And it's exactly that, is that Jarrett Doege, who is the quarterback for West Virginia, he is fantastic. He's an absolute stud when he is at home, but when he gets on the road, he throws more interceptions. He has more sacks against him. And it's not just that, it's also the defense. The defense completely just falls apart, allowing at home, they only give up like 230 total yards on average. When they travel on the road, that increases to about 350 off the top of my head. It's not an exact number, but that is one of the reasons why I like to fade West Virginia on the road. 17 is a big number. I think, yes, Spencer Rattler has a better game this time around. So then I'm going to leave it between you to decide then, which would you feel more comfortable with? Kentucky -5 or West Virginia, Oklahoma -17 at home?
Well, I do have in honor of you picking 3 favorites this week. Just want to throw that you're picking 3 favorites this week. I do have a bonus pick here to have you think about.
Okay, which one?
Another -30 selection.
Oh, no.
In Wyoming at Connecticut. Now, check this out. UConn is basically the new UMass when it comes to college football. 184 points they've given up to 3 games. They've scored only 49, includes losing to 1 AA, Holy Cross. Their leading receiver on their team, the leading receiver on UConn, has a grand total of 85 receiving yards. Wyoming, 95 points in the last 2 weeks versus the MAC teams. And I love this guy's name. I love this guy. He's a great player too. Xavier Valade, putting up big numbers for the Cowboys on the ground. Wyoming -30 just seems too easy. It seems too easy anytime that UConn goes up against anybody.
What is the line? 30.5. Holy shit, Harry. A big ass favorite. All right.
Let me check. Back-to-back 30-point favorites at you.
Jesus Christ. 30.5. Let me check one thing. Damn it. I don't think I like it. That's too big. Okay, so I like I'm like, how do I explain this? The UConn Huskies, yes, they're terrible, and they have had 2 games where they've been completely shut out. They lost 45-0 to Fresno State. They lost 49-0 Purdue. But against Army, they did show up a fight, and they put up 21 points. Now it's
they lost the Holy Cross by double digits.
It is complete, yes, but that wouldn't have covered a 30-point spread. Now, Army, though, they only won by exactly 31 points. Is Wyoming better than an Army triple option?
Oh.
And they're on the road. If this was at home, if this was Wyoming at home, 100%. But you have a traveling team in Wyoming who is, they're not a top 25 in anything. If they were top 25 in the run game, right now they're top 40. I wouldn't mind that. They beat Ball State. That was a good win to Ball State, but that was at home. Yeah. On the road. Even
big numbers in that game.
Northern Illinois, not a great team, and they only won by 7 on the road. Yeah. So if this was at home, I would 100%. Okay. I'd be in. I'd be backing it. But because it's traveling, next week they have Air Force. That's definitely a bigger game for them. I'm gonna pass on that one. So decide then between Kentucky -5 or Oklahoma -17.
Boy, I after we bust each other's chops left and right here about these big spreads, aside from I really don't like taking big spreads, to be honest. I don't like double digits, especially more than 2 touchdowns. But the only thing I'm confident in Kentucky, but I am worried about a letdown with having to play Florida. I really am a little bit.
Let's do Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma makes a lot of sense. I think it makes sense. West Virginia, terrible on the road. Oklahoma, they have to rebound. This offense was looking real sketchy last week. I think they have a better game this week. They are at home. Their defense is better at home also. So I think West Virginia, I don't need Oklahoma to put up 50 points, but I do think that West Virginia can have less than 3 scores. If you tell me that West Virginia is going to have less than 3 touchdowns, then I do like Oklahoma to cover this game, because I would be surprised if they hit 20.
Well, again, right. I mean, last week, not a lot of offense against Nebraska, and against not really a good team. In the opener, you figured they would have. I mean, they were now. Granted, they were supposed to play that Tulane game in Tulane, but the Hurricane pushed it back, and they moved it to Oklahoma. So a lot of things happened there during that week. So can't really discourage them from not covering that game, but still only won by 5 at home. Right. That's 2 bad games they've had at home. I think this is a situation where I like what you said last week. Again, just to reiterate, West Virginia, very good at home, not good on the road. I think this is a situation after that big win last week that they had and look good. They won't look good, and Oklahoma takes control of this game from the very outset and cruises, and Rattler has a much better game, and Oklahoma covers.
Then that's our card. We just did it. This is why we talk things through. We have Liberty -6 at Syracuse. We have Air Force -4.5 at home and at Florida Atlantic. Western Michigan -3 at home to San Jose. We have that's my 3 picks. Harry's picks are Notre Dame +6.5 versus Wisconsin, Rutgers +20 at Michigan, and Michigan State -5 at home versus Nebraska. And for our 7th pick, we're deciding to go with Oklahoma -17 at home against West Virginia. Those are 7 against the spread picks for college football. For week 4 of college football. Holy heck, with this season is going by. Do make sure to check out Harry's work on bestbetcorner.com and extrapoints.com and on the Against All Odds podcast with Cousin Sal. You can follow Harry on Twitter at AAOHarry. You can follow me at Pamela M35. Harry, my man, thank you for joining me again this week, and I can't wait to do it again next week.
Awesome, Pam. 5-2 at least.
I definitely believe so. 5-2, 6-1. Let's go. That does it for another college football podcast on Stack